Now, we'll proceed to the question and answer portion or an open forum. So, anyone from the audience who has a question for our speaker, Jana?
Okay, hello. I'm back. Okay, Miss Layson, good afternoon po. Here
Hello,
are
good afternoon.
here are some of my questions.
All
How do
right.
you come up with the research problems that accords with your interest po?
So, well, I mean, I believe that everybody has his or her own interests in the field of research. But in my case, the reason why I chose diabetes and aratiles, first let's talk about why I chose diabetes. Because, so diabetes plays a very major role in my family bloodline because in the maternal side of my family, um, my grandfather actually passed away because of diabetes. So, and so that makes me very vulnerable or susceptible to having diabetes as well. So at a very young age, I thought that, we must not find a cure, so to say, for diabetes, but rather a preventive measure. So because it's better to prevent the disease from actually occurring than to have it already in your system and already occurring. So um, you might be asked, and also relating it to, the bigger population. There are a lot of people nowadays who are diabetic, who are obese, and this leads to several risk factors, as I mentioned earlier: amputation, blindness, renal and hepatic dysfunction, heart failure. So all of these are very dreadful. So, so um, now talking about its relationship to aratiles, why I chose aratiles, because aratiles is a plant that that's oftenly neglected and we take it for granted because it's abundant in our society or in our community and we easily see it everywhere. So, and I mean, based on research, we don't really see a lot of papers tackling about local papers, not international, but local papers tackling about aratiles. So I also want to contribute to the body of knowledge and what its potential is in regulating diabetes and, well, several diseases in the future as well.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's important na yung problem na pipiliin natin ay may impact to yourself and also to a bigger population, di ba? Okay, thank you. For the next question,
Okay, for the next question. What tips can you give in finding the right consultant or research institution for your study?
Okay, so tips in finding a good research institution or consultant. Well, first and foremost, you must first need to identify what your problem is. And then from there, you have to narrow it down to what the materials is needed for that kind of study or the proposal that you want. And once you have found what the materials are needed for the experiment, then that's the time when you find good research institutions. Um, well, of course, it would also depend on where you're living, but like in my case, it was actually very challenging for me because I live in Iloilo, but I had to go back and forth to Manila because I conducted the research at DOST, Food and Nutrition Research Institute. So I don't think it's, unless if you're striving, and I know that most of you are striving to reach the international level or any higher level of competition, then yes, it is advisable to seek the help of experts in Manila, because these are scientists that have already been trained in their field, so to say. But that does not only limit that, or I'm not only saying that the good research institutions are in Manila. No, there are institutions, there are good research institutions rather, that are present in the provinces. So I think my tip is just be resourceful and just search online, because I know that our friend, Mr. Google, knows a lot of research institutions, and you can look at their services and their facilities.
Yan,
Thank you.
we yan, diba, Mr. Google? Great.
All right. Anyone who has question for Miss Layson?
Hi, may question po ako. Ayan. So, if there's one specific topic or issue that's making you eager to do a research for it, what is it and why?
So I think now, because of the pandemic that we're facing right now, so I think it's a research that I also want to delve into, and that is COVID 19. But the research that I want to go into is not finding like a vaccine for it per se, but delving into the prevention rather of how you, I mean, okay, you could do safety measurements by putting on a mask or putting on a face shield, but your lifestyle actually plays a very vital role also in preventing you from acquiring that disease, or I mean that virus rather. So I want to look for, or I want to delve into natural alternatives on how you can prevent that virus from actually entering your body, or just build up your immune system so that you wouldn't be susceptible to that virus. So I think that would be the problem that I would want to delve into right now.
Thank you po for the answer.
Thank you.
Ah, ako rin po may question po about dun sa what should the group of researchers need to do if they have no more ideas to conduct or to finish a research?
If you are out of ideas, well, I think my only advice there is, um, well, hmm, this is a very tricky question, but I mean, because in order for you to even conduct a research in the first place, everybody has to have his or her own set of ideas. But ideas, so to say, does not mean like you really have a study in mind. It it always begins with a problem. So what problem do you want to solve? So it always starts from there. You ask yourself. And then if you were a group, then you discuss over that problem or those problems that you have individually. And if you have come to a conclusion that, okay, we have chose idea one or problem one, then what are the possible solutions? What are the given solutions now that are present? And is it okay if we, or is there any solution that we can work upon? Is there any solution we can build upon? So making that solution your foundation for your project, that could be one. Or you can go for a totally novel solution. That's also an option. Or um, like in my case, going into natural alternatives if you're in the life sciences. So I'm guessing, I hope I addressed your question in answering those.
Okay, I hope that did answer your question, Kenneth, right? No.
Yes po.
Okay, so sino bang may tanong?
Excuse me, can you hear me po?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So, isa pa lang po akong college student. So, I have to start a reading a new unfamiliar research area that I'm really unfamiliar with. So I would just wanted to ask on what are the tips you could give on where to read the right scientific journals and how to choose the right authors to start reading an unfamiliar research area.
Right. So if we're delving into uncharted territories, um, well, I mean, like for instance, in my case, diabetes before was very unfamiliar with me. I wasn't familiar at all, and with that topic, research topic, so to say. So what I did was I searched up on Google researches on diabetes, and then of course it would be very vague because diabetes has there are types of like three types of diabetes
Uh-huh.
mellitus 1, 2, and 3. So um, I actually narrowed it down, and I had to choose which diabetes I wanted to tackle. So I tackled diabetes mellitus type 2. um, so once that was settled, um, because I already had a problem in mind and what plant I wanted to use, or the kind of methodology you want. Because if it's a very unfamiliar topic with you, you can go for, or you can read um, journals like dating 10 years ago, well, or very recent journals. But I go for the recent ones because um, these journals usually, you know, of course, they use modern materials already in their methodology. So I go for those. And where can you find these journals? Well, it's easily accessible on Google. Or if you cannot access these journals, then you can use well, Library Genesis or Sci-Hub for accessing these journals.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and another tip, also ask advice because it might be hard because it's new to you. So I also recommend that you ask advice from your research advisor or any consultant you have
Uh-huh.
regarding this matter so that they can also help you.
Is it also advisable to start reading from the history because you can understand what is the context of
Well,
the flow of their knowledge being from this mission into this now.
Well, I wouldn't say history, but I would say that you would read journals regarding the subject matter of your research, of what you want to study about, and just kind of get a grasp of what that um, subject matter is so
Uh-huh.
that you have a good background on what you want to research on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Layton. Thank you, Miss Layton. So that's what that's the importance of knowing the basics if you want to tackle a specific research problem. Okay, next. Sino may gustong magtanong? Anyone?
Hi, yes. I have a question po. Can you please share some experiences or tips when handling your time as a student and as a researcher?
Okay, so um, you know, it's in my experience, it was hard tackling research, doing research and doing schoolwork at the same time, especially when I was in 11th grade, when I continued this research. What I did was um, I had to prioritize, and I had to um, well, I of course, first and foremost, I had to know what my priorities were at that time when I was conducting my research, and I had to map out what my goals are because I mean, you can tackle your schedule in a whole different ways. But in my case, I like to set out a schedule for the day and set out some goals, what I want to accomplish during that day, because it helps me look at what I have to accomplish. And if I don't, then, of course, I get upset, but I just have to learn to accept. And also, another thing, so I think the underlying message that I want to say is that you just have to learn to prioritize, because that's what I did. I prioritized and I set out a schedule and some goals that I want to achieve.
Thank you very much po.
All right, thank you.
Okay, meron pa?
Hello po. Seeing how you present your work a while ago, can you give us tips on how to present confidently and maybe how to ease nervousness?
Okay, so ease nervousness. Well, actually, to be honest, I was very nervous earlier. Well, I mean, being nervous is very normal because sometimes there are times, especially during the Q&A, sometimes you just can't find the right words to say. But always keep in mind that if you're presenting a speech, or, I mean, a research presentation in this case, you just have to keep in mind that you know your research more than anyone else, even the judges. I know that they are very experienced in their field, but your research is your research. And y- I mean, you did this, and this was your hard work. You put in all of your time and effort into this research. So you know everything, well, everything that encompasses this research. So I think, I mean, at least for me, that's what I think, so that I wouldn't be as nervous and as insecure and would still have that confidence in presenting my research. I hope I
Thank you
addressed your
po.
question.
Tama. I hope that answered your question. Anyone? May
Hello
question
po.
pa ba?
I also have a question po.
Yes. Hello.
So, I've been admiring you and the way you do your researches. So what are the strategies that you use in making research?
The strategies. Um, okay. So wait, just to clarify, do you mean strategies in terms of experimentation, or in doing paperwork, or?
Um, can you share both if it's
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
Thank
Okay, I'll do that. Um, so strategies. Okay, first I'll start with the strategies in experimentation. Well, I mean, I for one, am not a trained chemist or somebody working in the lab. I'm not trained, and but um, because of the help of the research assistants of the institutions that I conducted my experiment. Well, of course, I had to undergo a week long of training before I could even, um, conduct the experiment. So they train you with, the basic pipetting skills, or the basic skills that you need in conducting an experiment. So the strategies in conducting is, I think, just abiding or just listening to what they teach you, if you are trained in the research institution, or if they require like a special training before even handling their equipment. Then what I did was I just listened attentively, and I was very eager to learn, so that stuck in my head. And um and of course, I've also looked at videos as well on, YouTube. And I've also read on how to do pipetting or how to do chromatography and all of those basic skills that are needed in the experiment. So that's for experimentation. Strategies on writing a paper or writing your logbook. Writing a logbook. So what I would actually say is your logbook is like your diary because you jot down all of the essential information that is needed, what you did on that particular day in the lab, or what research or else you have, or related literatures you have acquired, and how do they relate to your research. Because looking back, I mean, it serves as um, something that you can look back at, your logbook. That's why it's very essential to have a very detailed one. If you can, um, add some pictures on what you did on that day and some notes on the side. It doesn't have to be clean and neat because, I mean, it's only for your perusal. And only you can understand what you have written there, and you can use that actually in formulating your research paper because you're going to look back at the methodology on how much sample you have um, used in this day or stuff like that. So doing a research paper, I think, requires a lot of related literatures. So you also have to be very keen in looking for these literatures because, oh, and also this does not only relate to like your problem alone, but also beyond, like what are the side effects, or so to say, what are the effects of what, for instance, diabetes. There's actually, it's actually inflammation that causes diabetes, and how antioxidants can help, um, like how antioxidants can help, like so to say, lessen the inflammation that's happening. So things like this, you also have, it's like thinking outside of the box as well. So that's, I think, how I strategize in doing a research paper. I hope that wasn't too complicated, or I didn't like, and I hope I addressed your question.
Yes. With
Thank you
that,
po.
nabigyan ka naman ng tip, no, Nicole? Ang galing niya, di ba? Okay. So, meron pa bang question? Meron pa ba tayong question? Anyone? Okay, wala. Oh, meron ditong question from Crystal Joyce Ameda. Any tips for researchers daw po who are dedicated to conduct their study but don't have that much money to spend for a good institution or like to pay for a good consultant?
Right. So that's always a problem. Um, you know, especially, I mean, in my school before, in Iloilo National High School, that was also a problem that was faced by most students, that they were, I mean, in the financial, they had financial problems. So that's why they weren't able to find a good research institution or find a good consultant. So my advice there is, look for institutions like, for instance, Department of Science and Technology. I know that one of their institutions there are actually helping. Their task actually is to help students or fund their research studies. So again, you also have to be resourceful and look for these institutions who are, um, you know, wanting to give their help in funding your research study.
Thank you. I hope, Joyce, that answered your question. Yan. Okay, meron pa ba tayong question?
Okay, sige.
So, I have a question. How will research studies will adapt during the pandemic that we are experiencing?
Oh, sorry. Um, so I couldn't say for sure how they can adapt because I know that most of the researchers now, or like the research institutions now, are very busy, going into COVID related research. So I think that would be a trend in the research community about COVID and finding the vaccine. Um, so I think that would be like kind of how research would adapt, and maybe hopefully that they would see that it's not only looking for a vaccine but rather the prevention on how you can build your immune system and kind of protect yourself from even acquiring that virus, or even just building your immune system so that you wouldn't be susceptible to the virus.
Okay,
So
thank
I'm
you.
just hoping that that would be the line of research that, other researchers would look into.
But maybe po yung research this school year, no, hindi masyadong magawa ng students because of the quarantine.
Yes. So I think for this year, because I really couldn't say for sure, but as I said, the research institutions are just very busy right now, doing their own research, and um, yeah. So I think for this year, I couldn't say that the researches that um, you guys want to pursue would actually push through this year.
Right, that's right. Okay, anyone, meron pa?
So, ako po
Last.
ulit.
Okay,
Hmm.
go ahead.
Wait. So, what advice can you give to researchers who are afraid to pursue their idea due to problems like financial problems po?
So I think relating to financial problems, um, you're you don't really have the confidence. Is that what you're trying to say, po? Or
For example po kasi di po may mga like studies po na napaka-pricey, pero yun po yung parang nasa isip niyo po na gawin, pero hindi niyo po magawa siya dahil di po kaya ng budget, ganun po.
okay. So, well, as I said earlier, that there are institutions, especially those of the Department of Science and Technology, which have a goal to help other students fund their research. So, of course, you also have to apply and present your proposal to them, and they would also see if this research has the potential. But I believe that every research has a potential in contributing to the vast body of knowledge, because that is what research is all about. It's about finding sustainable solutions for the world's dreadful problems, and also contributing to the vast body of knowledge. So,
Okay
ganon
po.
for financial problems. Yan. Just seek out or look for institutions who are willing to help. Or not only institutions, but maybe you might know of people who are willing to help fund researches.
Yan, God will provide naman, diba?
Thank you po.
Good, good.
Thank you then.
Thank you. Okay, meron pa ba?
Okay. Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Since I'm not a ready person, I don't read stuff. I hate reading. Do you think people should read publications the same standard as reading mainstream novels and newspapers?
Okay, so, well, I, for say, I'm actually not a reader. I'm not a bookworm myself.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, just something to keep in mind. Why am I reading this? What is the purpose of what is the relevance rather why I have to be reading this journal? Because the main goal here is you're wanting to help solve a problem, and you're wanting to help give back to the society, because you're doing a research not just because you want it to, or you want to pass a requirement, or not because you want to win a competition. No, you do a research because you want to give back to society, and you want to help other people or inspire other people as well. So I think my advice there would be kind of, it doesn't have to be like reading a um it wouldn't be like reading a mainstream novel or some newspapers, because that is different. That is a whole different genre than what is written in newspapers and novels. But it's just something that if you're interested in, just look into it. And if you don't have the inspiration in reading it, then just remind yourself, why am I doing this? For what purpose?
Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you, then.
Thank you. Okay, meron pa ba?
I have a question po.
Okay, go ahead.
Was aratiles the only fruit you tested, or did you test other plants or fruits through this research?
For this research alone, it was only Aratiles that was tested, but I wouldn't say it was the only fruit that I wanted to test. Because, of course, from a whole variety of plants, well, not only the fruit, but the whole entire plant, um, there were a lot of plants that I wanted test, but because of um, you know time, and of course it's also very costly to have tested a whole lot of samples. I had to narrow it down to Aratiles only. So for this research, it was only Aratiles.
Okay, thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you, then.
Okay. Wala na?
So I have a question. How do you know if you're pursuing the right kind of research topic?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong research topic, because it also depends on the interest of what you want to research on. Um, Pero my advice there would be just to consult your research advisor, because he or she would know what's best for you and your team. But primarily, of course, it always starts with you and your interest. So yes,
Thank you po.
thank you, then.
Okay, so I received a question from Crystal Joyce Ameda. How to have a confidence to conduct a research individually? Isn't it hard to conduct a study alone? Or are you with a group po? She asked. Thank you.
Okay, so um, I wouldn't say it's easy conducting an experiment alone. Because I'm actually in the life science individual category. So, but I also had the experience when I was back in sixth grade, I had the experience of also doing a research with a group. I wouldn't say it was better because it was a whole different experience. So you really couldn't compare these two experiences. Um, because as I said earlier in the speech, that research either done alone or as a group, it's not easy because it entails hard work. You have to put your time and effort into everything that you do because of course um, you know you will soon bear the fruit of your hard work if you do put in that time and effort into what you're doing. And this does not only entail conducting researches, but in everything that you just do in life. So I hope I addressed your question.
Yes, I think you did po. All
Thank you.
right. Do we have any other questions? We still have 5 minutes left for the question and answer portion. Okay. You can unmute your mics or send questions to the chat.
Um, Miss, what is your advice po if the researchers have many research ideas but don't know how to sort it?
Okay, so if there are a lot of ideas that you and your team have formulated, or they just don't fit, um, my advice there would be, kind of agree to what you think is the most dreadful problem out of all of the problems that you have presented. And from there, if everybody agrees that, okay, this problem one is the most dreadful out of all of the problems that we have discussed, then probably that would be something worth researching on. Thank you, Din.
Okay, so do we have any other questions? We have 4 minutes left.
I ha- I have a question din po. What does it take to be a researcher po?
Well, what does it take? Well, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm trying to analyze what the personalities or what the traits you have to acquire if you want to conduct a research. But you know, I just like to um, relate research to life because if you do that, then it's like you're just tackling life itself. Like you have to be dedicated in what you're doing. You have to be passionate. You have to um, really love what you're doing because I know it may seem like work to other people, but if you do love what you're doing, then that work becomes, not as dreadful as you think it is. And also, you just have to be goal oriented. At least for me, I like to be goal oriented because it just helps me. It just helps motivate me to reach a particular goal at the end of the day.
Thank
So
you
I
po.
think those are the traits that you have to acquire. Oh, and another thing pala, um, you also have to be very observant. I think that's like very essential in being a researcher because if you're not observant, then of course you would miss out the small details in your research, and sometimes those small details mean a whole lot, and it plays a very vital role in your research. And also be very appreciative of the small things in life, also in it. I mean, especially things found in nature. Oh, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes po.
Sorry,
Okay,
I lagged. It was my internet.
okay lang. It's okay po. Okay, so 1 minute. Meron pa ba question?
Good afternoon, Miss Layson. I have a question
Yeah.
for you. How was the experience being one of the Philippine representatives in the Intel ISEC, with the pressure, excitement, and honor coming with it?
Right. So, um, you know, the overall experience being a representative in the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair was just surreal. Because it has always been one of my dreams, especially when I was first introduced to the field of research when I was in fifth grade. I've always wanted to go to that level of competition. So I would say that it was very humbling, and that I felt very blessed to have represented the Philippines at that competition. Um, for the pressure, well, I mean, I didn't really think about what the pressure was too much because, of course, but then, if you think about it, looking back, it was tremendous. The pressure, the amount of pressure that was given to you was tremendous because it's like you are holding the dreams of other aspiring researchers rather, of the country that you're representing. So that's another factor in terms of pressure. But in terms of the overall experience, it was just so much fun because you get to meet new people, you get to learn about their culture, you get to learn about their researches, and just bond with them, get to know them better, and of course attending a pre a research fair that large, of course, you know, you would say that, wow, this is something that, happens for most of us once in our lives. And so, ayan, I just felt very humbled and very blessed to have been in that competition.
Thank you for answering.
It's the
Thank
dream
you,
of all
then.
researchers in the country po, no?
Yes, it is.
And thank you so much, Ms. Layson. I think that would be our last question since mag-overtime na tayo. Okay, super thank you so much, Ms. Layson. We are very honored to have you today po.
Yes.
Thank you then for having me.
Thank you, thank
And
you.
all the researchers in this webinar learned a lot from her kasi grabe. Ang dami kong natutunan today.
Okay. Yes. So before we give Miss Layson her certificate of appreciation, we would like to uh, tell everyone that we still have a surprise later. So please don't leave. Okay? So the Researchers Initiative presents this certificate of appreciation to Miss Maria Isabel Layson for imparting her valuable insights during her presentation entitled STEM SKL as part of the speakers for the Researchers Initiative SIP Talks 2020 webinar given this 4th day of September 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, you've shown us your very brilliant side po.
At
And thank you then
nakaka-inspire.
for giving this and thank you also for giving me this opportunity to impart my little knowledge on on my research, and hopefully I have inspired other people as well.
It's for us and we deserve. Congratulations. Okay, let's proceed. We're going to play our game na nilalaro natin everyday pero hindi natin siya nalaro kanina.
Oo.
Jana?
Pero Yung mga hindi naman makakapag-participate, pwede nyo naman to i-take as a break. Pwede kayo mag-CR, uminom ng water, kumain. Pwede naman kayo kumain. So, yes, let's play. Walaan nyo nga kung ano, na alam na agad ayan. Di pa yun. Eto, go to this link, kahoot.it, at enter nyo ang ating code. Iisip na kayo ng inyong mga...
Miss Layson, you may join the game.
Opo, pwede mo kayo join.
It's a short game lang po. Kahoot.it.
Alright.
Enter the code 2579003.
Okay, enter your game pin na. Oh, mga excited talaga tong mga to. Halatang inabangan ang ating Kahoot. Excited kayo, no? Yes, Miss Layson. Sama natin ang PhilHealth. Ibalik yun ang ating 15 billion. Sino pa bang kasama natin today? Helicopter. Sorry. O, Scream Dynamite daw. Okay, as of now, we have 33 players. May magjo-join pa ba? Paalala lang, pwede kayong mag-CR na. Time check, 2:35 p.m. So yung mga hindi pa nagla-lunch dyan dahil sobrang excited sa ating webinar today, you may eat na ha. Kung walang nagpapaalala sa inyong kumain, eto, pinapaalalahanan ko na kayo ngayon. Kain na kayo, guys. So, alright, 41 players. Meron tayo ditong kahotero. Mag-start na tayo within 10 seconds. So, join na yung iba pa. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Alright, let's start. What must be highlighted in the presentation? Methods and results, research problem and results, or results and conclusion? Okay. 10 seconds left to answer. Alright. 17 of our players got the correct answer, research problem and results. Why though? Kasi ang research problem and results daw nagsho-show you ng essence of giving the audience a gist of what the researchers came up with. First, it's important to emphasize what problem we are trying to solve, di ba? Then highlight the engineering goals in a way that the project has a clear objective and relevant to a potential population's needs. Second, it presents the researcher's skills in obtaining or supporting data for the research conclusions. Ganun yun. So, let's see our scoreboard. Yes, top natin ngayon si Suyu. Second, si Jaba Miyumeko. Wow, kasi gambling lang magaling si Jaba Mi. Okay, next question. Who is the best presenter among the choices? Ayan, basahin nyo. And with a loud voice, but not prepared, or confident siya. Look with an average voice, or concise naman ang kanyang pagpapresent. Si Jade, the soft voice, or nagpapresent naman siya concise. And one. Alright. Of course, majority of our players got the correct answer. Look with an average voice, who presents and answers questions concisely. The researcher's mastery and preparations for their study are evaluated both in his or her manner of speaking and answering questions. The presenter has to speak clearly and comprehensively, alright? Comprehensive dapat, hindi yung mabilis lang, hindi yung fluent lang, pero dapat comprehensive. Let's see our scoreboard. Alright. Top 1 pa rin siya, guys. Next question. True or false? Research is done never for oneself, but to serve others. We must all know this, no? Ang bilis magsagot. Halatang mga alamang sagot. 2 and 1. Alright, of course, it's true. So, masaya naman ako tama ang sagot nyo, di ba? Tama ang, mukhang marami kayong natutunan ngayong ating webinar dahil tama ang sagot nyo dito. Kasi di ba, hashtag agham para sa bayan. Alright, let's see the research podium. Third place, SVT. Wow. Second place, si Shoto. Sino si Shoto? The first, si Tsuyu. Dahil dyan, bibigyan namin kayo ng palakpakan. Yay! Alright. We hope na nag-enjoy kayo sa ating Kahoot, di ba? Alam namin yun ang pinaka-ini-enjoy nyo. Joke, namin nag-enjoy din kayo makinig.